Good morning. Life happens when you're making other plans. It's kind of my life story. I had some very different shows planned for this week, but life has changed those shows because I have a show for you today that, well, the show I had planned was probably going to get me some hate mail. I think this one might get me some sympathy and maybe some understanding. A little back history. This set, my home, has actually been in my family since the 1940s. My grandparents bought this house in the 40s for $5,000. Yeah, imagine the taxes I pay on it now. It's worth more than that now, but is it? I don't know. My mother was, I think, 13 years old, and she and her mom and her dad moved in here. And then I was born in this house. I was raised in this house. And knock on wood, well, I mean, it's not even knock on wood because it's history. We've never had a fire. We've never had an electrical fire. And it's so strange because when the city starts upping their coding and changing how people live, even though their house has been standing for over 100 years, this house is 100 years old. And when I was growing up, you know what the electrical system was we had? Well, first of all, we have a coal cellar in the basement. This house, before my grandparents bought it, was run on coal. So that's how old this house is. And they never had a fire. Any issues? Nothing. House is fine. And I remember as a child, my grandmother, we had a fuse box. Do any of you remember fuse boxes, or do you still have a fuse box? Let me just tell you, just to let you know, if you have a fuse box with the little light bulbs that you plug in and plug out, they're illegal in Lancaster City. It's new, can't have those. But we don't have a fuse box anymore, but we did. We had a fuse box when I was a child. I remember my grandmother was the only person in this house who knew how to change the fuses. They didn't go out very often, but if a fuse blew, my grandmother just went in her little toolbox and pulled out a new little thing and took the old one out that was all black and plugged the new one in, and everything worked. It was fine. We were living good. We had electric. Everything worked. Now, when my grandmother died and my mother got the house in her name, well, my mother wasn't mechanically inclined. So she got an electrician to come in and put in a breaker box. You know, the breakers, flip, flip, breaker blows, you go down, you flip, flip, fine. And the only issues that we had after the original breaker box was put in was that the one breaker, number 3, was a little overloaded. So if you wanted to vacuum, which my mother did very rarely, but if you wanted to vacuum, you had to turn all the lights off that was on the same breaker, which was basically all the lights behind me, the living room lights, everything on that side of the house. You had to turn off to plug in the vacuum cleaner, or else you trip the breaker. And then you just go to the basement and flip it back, and everything was fine. Again, no fires, no catastrophe. It was fine. We never had any other issues with the breakers until last September. Now, again, 1940s, my grandparents bought the house. They had fuse boxes. When my grandmother died in, I think, 1987, my mother had a breaker box put in. No big worries there either. In 2000, my mother remarried, sold the house to me and my husband. Now it's our house. And we never had any problems either, except with that number 3 breaker where I told my husband, don't plug in the vacuum when all the other lights are on. Turn the lights off, plug the vacuum in. Bam. Fine. In our kitchen, The microwave was on its own breaker. Never once did the breaker blow in the kitchen. Not one time. Until last month. Now, you will remember, if you've been reading my blogs and listening to my posts, that in September we had an issue with another breaker. The one in the dining room that the air conditioner was plugged into. It kept tripping for weird reasons. And we called Lowry Services. They came out. They said, oh, yeah, this is a serious problem because the breaker keeps tripping. You've burned out the outlet. We're going to fix the outlet, replace the breaker. Oh, and by the way, you've got another issue. Your outside electrical box has had water coming into it. It's gone into you need everything replaced. All of your electric has to be replaced for $6,000. And of course, because we want to be safe, we don't want a fire, we said, yes, please, we'll do it. We'll do it. So in September, they completely did everything. Redid our electric, a new outside box, a new breaker box, new breakers, new outlets in the kitchen. And the city inspector came out and he made sure everything was done. He said, my gosh, this was pristine work. Everything's up to code. You're perfect. And then last month, my husband was making something in the microwave and he pushed start and the breaker blew in the kitchen. A breaker that had never blown before in an appliance that had never blown before. He's like, well, okay, it did its job. I'll go in the basement. He reset it. Everything was great. Funny thing was, the microwave wasn't the only thing that blew when that breaker went. The coffee maker, which again in September was plugged in right there, and my stove, while it's gas, my oven, the panel where I set my temperature when I cook in the oven, that went too. And I'm like, well, wait a second. The microwave was always on its own breaker before September. He's like, well, don't worry about it. It was probably a fluke. Maybe there's a power surge. Well, it happened again on Sunday. My husband was cooking an egg in the microwave. He pushed go and boom, breaker blew. I said, okay, that's it. We paid $6,000. I'm calling the electrician. So they came back out yesterday. And lo and behold, guess what I find out? I explained to this man, who was very nice. He was really, really nice, from Lowry Services. I said, you know, I've lived in this house my entire life. And of course, like, oh, wow, you don't look like you're 54. No, I'm 54. That's what a pack and a half a day of cigarettes gets you. This. Hello. Did I mention this was political, Paula, incorrect? Yeah, it is. So he starts telling me why I can't use my coffee maker and my microwave at the same time after spending $6,000 in September. I'm like, whoa, 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 wait. Remember, I've lived in this house all of my life, and we've had a microwave since microwaves came out, and we never had the microwave blow. And before September, we had the coffee maker plugged in there and the microwave plugged in there. They were both on at the same time, plugged in at the same time, and we had no issues. Well, let me explain. I'm like, how about you explain? Let me call my husband, get him on the speaker. You can explain to both of us. Because my husband's father, my father-in-law, is electrically inclined. My husband knows electrical. He's not an electrician, but he knows. I said, talk to my husband. Well, it comes to find out that for $6,000, here's what we got. Yes, our electrical work in our house that has never caught fire, even back in the day when we had the fuses that, according to this electrician, were very dangerous, caused lots of fires, very, very dangerous. Well, not to us. We just knew that our shit worked. We could use our kitchen when we needed to. If something blew, my grandmother went downstairs and 6 minutes later, we had our stuff back. No, no, no. They've changed the codes. Your kitchen no longer has the amps you require to run your coffee maker and your microwave at the same time. Wait, what? So basically, in September, I could run my microwave and my coffee maker at the same time. I could make a cup of coffee and heat up some pancakes in the microwave and have my coffee and pancakes all hot, all at the same time. And I paid $6,000, so now I can't use my house. No, see, the kitchen you had before was dangerous. Really? It was dangerous because the microwave was on its own breaker and the other outlets in the kitchen were on a different breaker. Yeah, see, no, that wasn't up to code. You only have so many amps available for your kitchen. And by the way, if you want to change that, we can do that, but it's going to be very difficult, and we're going to charge you for that. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Are you kidding me right now? So, for all these years, I've been able to make a cup of coffee and a microwave pancake at the same time. I spend $6,000 to make my house safer, and now I can't use my kitchen. At least you want to know, wait, you want to know how many outlets that are in my kitchen? And do you want to know how much those new up to code by Nanny Government City code, do you want to know how much those outlets cost? Each new outlet, they put 3 outlets into my kitchen. Each outlet cost $100. That's $300. Each outlet has 2 things on them. 6 things that technically I should be able to plug in my kitchen and use all at the same time. But no, see. You can't plug in a toaster and the microwave and the coffee maker and the blender at the same time. That's going to be what they call a nuisance breakers out. It's a nuisance trip of the breaker. But don't worry, it's not going to hurt anything. Well, if I'm trying to have breakfast, it might hurt that I can't have a cup of coffee and an Egg McMuffin all at the same time when they're both hot at the same time because I can't use my house after spending $6,000. My God in heaven, I should have just let the damn fucking thing blow up. Then I could have collected insurance and got a new damn house. I mean, are you kidding? Here's the problem. Because some people are really, really, really stupid. Do you know why I had to spend $100 for these new outlets, which I will never need? It's because the outlets were more than a certain amount of yardage from a sink. It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to plug in an electric mixer and drop it in a sink full of water while I'm using it. That's what these $100 outlets are about. Because if you drop your electric mixer into a sink full of water, you won't electrocute yourself. Well, you know what? Once again, 1940s. My grandmother used an electric mixer almost every fucking day. She never dropped her electric mixer into water. She never electrocuted herself. And you know what? The outlets in the kitchen worked. She could plug in multiple items. We had a toaster plugged in all the time. Now they say, oh my God, don't leave your toaster plugged in. It's a fire hazard. Well, my grandmother always had the toaster plugged in. She didn't have a microwave. They didn't have them back then. But my grandmother never electrocuted herself while mixing dough or mixing cake batter because she wasn't stupid. But now we pay $100 for outlets made for the exact same purpose of making sure that if you're mixing up a batter, you don't drop your electrical appliance into a sink full of water. Same thing with the bathroom. You got to have one of these $100 outlets in your bathroom because God forbid you fill up your sink with water and blow dry your hair. Oops, oh, electrocuted. They assume people are stupid. And now, thanks to the new city codes, a house that I have lived in since the day I was born, and knock on wood, never had an electrical fire, never had any major issues in this house, except issues that were other people's fault, like the sewer backing up into the basement, which, we had to pay for that too. Like people with their damn overgrown trees in our lines and ripping up our pavement. Not my fault. This house has always done good by us. We know this house. But thanks to the city of Lancaster, I can't use my house. And I paid $6,000 for the privilege because what I was told was the guy who came in for the $6,000, he did everything up to code. He did it right. What you had before was against the law. But you know what, motherfucker? I could use my kitchen. Political Paula, out.